is the new ARB bull bar for my Suzuki Samurai. It's for an 87. Working on the engine, that's why there's no carburetor there. Getting the Sidewinder kit coming. It's a 44mm carb. But for this video, I just wanted to kind of go through some of the installation on the ARB bull bar, Warren VR 8000 winch. First impressions, the bull bar is awesome. It's really pretty. Has everything I'm pretty much looking for in my kind of rig here that I'm working on. Just wanted to point out a couple things. So I did not cut off the end pieces here and here because those actually mount up to these two end pieces here and here. The installation instructions that ARB gives you are not that great for the Samurai. They're basically just some written instructions, kind of talks you through it. They do give you some hardware. Let's see here, this hardware here, these nuts and this. So basically, this is the hardware you get with the bumper. I don't believe you need the winch install kit. It's like $100 or 97 or whatever. This here mounts onto the front. This is just for your basically mounts onto the front side in these two positions. It basically is your license plate holder if you want to have a front license plate holder. They give you these little adapters. They are different sizes. So the shorter ones go on the bottom, the bigger ones go on the top. In your frame rails, so the larger ones will insert into here, and the smaller one inserts into here. There's a little space right here on the side. That's where basically back here in the bumper you have these kind of holes here and here. So the larger ones will mount up to there. The smaller ones include the space because this piece here actually slides inside the bumper. I don't know if you could tell here, but they're basically offset. These top holes are out a little bit further. These in holes are in that way a little bit, and this will mount up to there. Actually, I think this one here, actually, they both mount on, let me think here. Actually, yeah, it's on this side. So the large one goes up here, the small one goes down here. The holes for the winch are, there is some move here for the fair lead. So, I haven't lined it up yet to see if it'll fit, but it should. You do need to rotate the winch lever so that you can access it from this hole here. Additional things, they do have some mounts here and here for off-road lights or accessories or whatever. Overall, the bumper was really well built. There was a couple little defects. You can see here, this back little corner is all kind of gnarly, as well as this side here. And it's where basically they must have hit some concrete or something on this corner, so I just kind of had to bend them. I also did have to tap these bottom brackets, so I did have to bend them in a little bit, so that basically when the bumper comes up, those littler brackets tuck inside and the upper brackets go outside. So when you kind of set it in position, you set it in and slide the bolt in the inside here, it feeds through, and then you put the nut and washer and whatnot on that side. And then you use the factory screws out here to kind of tighten that up. And then they also supply you with an additional nut and bolt hardware here, because so the factory screw is going to go there, And then this one you have to drill out and just kind of snug that in there. It looks like it's just additional support. Previous owner must have hit something because that was kind of bent in a little bit. They also, I used to have, this is just a side note, but there's the stock bumper. I had a little grill guard on there. The previous owner, I don't know why the hell they did this, but these were the brackets for that grill guard right over there. And it was decent, it looked all right, but what they did is they bolted them. They bolted these brackets up here, and then they freaking welded the darn things to the frame here. So I had to grind these guys off. Good thing they didn't have good welding skills, because I was able to get those off without too much difficulty. So I grounded those down, cleaned it all up, primed it just to put a little bit. But you can see here there was some damage when they hit something. It looks like it cracked here, and they tried to weld this up a little bit here. Wasn't really much any damage to the body unless they repaired that, but overall, yeah, I don't need those anymore. So let's see here. Oh, okay, so this hardware here, so this is from Low Range Off-Road. I ordered the bumper from them. They shipped it from ARB out of Jacksonville, Florida, I believe. That must have been where they had one in stock. This kit here is from Low Range Off-Road, and it's their, you know, winch bumper install kit. One thing to note, so these bolts are what comes with the bumper. These bolts are a lot longer that Low Range gives you. The other thing to note is the bolts that come with the ARB bumper, there's two, there's a washer, a lock nut, and you know, your nut, or a locking washer and your nut. The thing is you don't have much play. The other thing to note is these bottom bolts actually have to feed through here, through this hole here, across, and then out here, and you put it out there. The problem with that is I believe they're going to be too short. You're not going to have enough thread to tighten this down once it's through there. The other issue, and they don't tell you this on Low Range's website, but these, there's two bolts that are normal. And what I mean by normal is there's nothing's been done to them. But then there's two bolts in the kit that you'll notice that they shaved down the edge here on these two guys, right here and right here, right? So there's one side that's shaved down right there. The reason being, but they don't tell you this, is that, and I mean they might if you call them, you know, they're good people, but when you feed this through, right, the shaved down side right here has to slide in there, and in order for you to get the bolt actually all the way through, right? So it basically acts as kind of like a stop, and you can't spin the bolt once it's in there because it's butt up against the inside of this here. My issue, of course, on this side, because some idiot freaking must have hit something, is that, you know, even with that shaved down side, the bolt doesn't go through, it doesn't line up. It barely starts to come through, but then the threads catch. So I just have to kind of open that hole up just a smidge. I tried to bend this out a little bit, but that didn't really work. So I'll just drill this out a little bit, and then it'll slide through freely. So, besides these being longer, and that being shaved down, I guess I could have shaved down the edges of those ones. I didn't know those came shaved like they are. It makes sense now that I have them. I got that kit because I didn't really know what was included in the ARB kit other than the bumper itself. They don't really get into specifications on hardware. I'm sure I could have probably found that somewhere online, but I didn't. The other thing to note is the ones that do come with the low range kit, all of these sleeves, they all are the exact same size, whereas the ARB ones, you know, that you get, there's 2 longer ones and 2 shorter ones because of this bracket here having to fit on the inside of the frame rail. The other thing to note is if we look at these guys, I'll just put them right here. It looks like, kind of looks like that maybe the ARB ones are a little bit beefier, although I don't really see any seams on this one. Obviously on this one here you can see there's a clear seam. I believe I might just use the ARB ones, you know, for once that's shorter and I don't want to have to grind down some of these guys. They say, I believe in this kit, they do say, I believe online, that there are shorter sleeves for the bottom and taller ones for the top, but clearly there are not, unless I just got a kit that was mixed matched. I don't know. Additional hardware here is basically some bolts for the license plate adapter. There are also these little black caps, and what those are for, I believe, is for when you mount in your lights. The screws are going to protrude through the back. You can just put the little caps on there so you don't poke yourself, I guess. And there's also these little speed nuts or whatever to help you kind of, when you put your screws through there, you just clip those on the back. That's about it as far as the kit goes. I'm going to go through the winch that I got. This is the cheaper one compared to the one with the synthetic cable, but it should do a good job. So let's see here. Alright. So you got some hardware. Fairlead does have the metal cable. Has a pretty long positive and a pretty long ground cable. So again, I don't think you need the ARB kit, because I believe it just comes with some cables. I was told that the ARB winch install kit is roughly 5 pounds shipping, so it can't include much other than maybe some cables, from what I've been told. Overall, the Fairlead, there's 2 holes there, and yeah, I have to go through the instructions on this guy just to kind of confirm how things go together. Let's see here. Tried to so we'll set that guy there for a minute. So the little tag off of there. Let's see here. It does say that here on this tag, this is what was attached to the Fairlead. It says not to use the bottom ones, but to use those ones. Bolts go through the back. Lock washer not go on the actually, sorry. Bolts go through the front. lock washer and nut go on the back. I'm gonna look, see how this lines up. There, let's see. I don't know if there's a top or bottom. I'm assuming the holes go at the bottom. So based on this alignment, it actually looks like you gotta use. So based on this here, it looks like you have to actually use these bottom holes. That's kind of how it's aligning on the front of the bumper based on where the holes are. I don't know why they say not to use these bottom ones and to use the top ones. We'll have to go through and figure that out. Alright, so just wanted to point out a couple things here. So I don't have it mounted in there yet, but so you take all these bolts off to rotate it because it needs to mount, you know, flush in here. Problem is your clutch now on the VR8000 has this little elbow right here, right, which then hits and obviously you're not going to be able to engage your clutch because the hole in the ARB bumper is cut out round, and when you rotate this it hits, and so it can't go all the way. So just to let's go back in there to show you this here. So it needs to actually go like that. The problem is once you do that, then it's the nuts down below are not gonna sit flush, or the winch doesn't sit flush to the bumper. So rather than cutting the bumper, I think the solution is going to be to just kind of cut off the tip of this clutch engager. If I rotate it back, the problem is it's going to come back this far basically, because there's a screw here and then there's a screw down here. So if I rotated this screw back to here, it'll rotate this whole cylinder, but then now my clutch will be basically in this position, which then I wouldn't be able to reach through this hole at the top to actually get my fingers to turn it. So right here, if I just kind of trim this, I could still kind of engage it without having that little elbow on there. Other than that, the hardware that comes with the winch is basically here. You have 4 bolts to bolt the winch in. There's 2 additional bolts and 2 additional lock washers. I'm not entirely sure what these little tiny nuts are, and there's 1 additional washer, so not entirely certain what those are for. They may be for inside of the winch electronics. I don't know. There's also these extra little caps, and then there's 3 of these little guys, and it's basically they cap your electrical connections once you get those installed. The other thing is with the fairlead. So the fairlead is going to mount on underneath, down under, you know, on the front of the bumper here. These bottom holes in the fairlead are to allow the bottom bolts that the winch installs in. These additional holes right here, you basically have to drill out, and that's what these bigger bolts are for, to put those guys through. So you have additional, so you have the one that actually, the top one doesn't line up with the winch, so this is shorter. So from what I gather, you just drill out this, well, drill out on the bumper. I'll show you that here. So if you can see this here, basically the bottom hole on the fairlead lines up with the hole on the front of the bumper, and then just above that you have to drill out on the bumper for this bolt. And as you can see here, the top hole that you mount the winch to is not affected. That'll get you the proper alignment. So in order to do that, I think it might be best to flip the bumper and line up the holes, mark them, and then drill them. So I'm going to do that next. I'm going to cut that little clutch arm down a little bit so it rotates properly in this hole here, and we'll go from there. Alright, so I got the additional hole drilled and the bolt and nut, right? The issue is that, here, let me set this down here. Everything lines up how it should. Problem is when, alright, so if the bolt goes up in, then the lock washer sits on it, and then the nut, right? Problem is when it's down inside of here like that, the I'll pick this up and come over here. When it's in here like this, right, the nut with the lock washer, even once it's all cinched down, sits up too high. And the winch that needs to mount into here can't cradle and clear the height of the nut. Right, so the nut sits up too high. The leg on the winch isn't high enough to sit over, right? So if I flip them, instead of putting the nut and the lock washer on this side, and I put the bolt down through, it just barely clears. So if you look, once you get the width of the lock washer and the nut on there, it's going to sit a lot higher. So this sits lower, but not low enough. It barely, it's about, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just grind these down so that the winch can clear. It's gonna, it's gonna take out some of the, I guess, the strength of that holding, but it will have additional ones down here. I mean, that's basically right where it needs to be. It's not, the rollers are perfectly positioned in my mind, so that the cable isn't gonna, grind on against this lip here or against that lip there. And there's room to play, so I could always move it up a little bit. So the next step is going to be grind down these bolts a little bit, so that when I mount the winch over the top, those legs will clear. And I don't know if it's just the VR8000 or if it's going to be other winches or what, but basically to kind of show you, so there's what I was talking about. So these feet here sit over the top, and that bolt sits right against here in this area here. Those feet aren't long enough to clear, basically. So I'll grind them down a little bit. I still need to cut that guy off there. So once I trim this and grind down those bolts a little bit, we'll go from there. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is basically I ground down these a little bit, but I can't get them down too much more. So I'm going to use some washers. I got 2 washers here stacked up to give me some additional height so that the winch will clear when it goes over. I have the, I guess, electrical box or whatever for the winch kind of sitting here because I have to run this ground cable in and connect to the ground additional to this ground strap at the same time. I put in the nuts into the bottom of the winch and kind of just put some tape over them just to hold them in. I ended up cutting off this piece here. Hopefully this didn't get too hot. It does still turn fine. I just heard some kind of sizzling noise, so when I was when I cut it off, so I didn't know if I could take it out or not. I'm sure it probably does come out, but I didn't take it out. I just cut it. We'll see what happens. Hopefully I didn't just mess up my winch. So I'm gonna set this board here just to kind of prop up the winch while I get it situated. There we go. Sorry about that. Alright, so this is just to kind of hold it. So hopefully I can get the ground and the ground strap connected at the same time. Right, got that on there. Alright, so it looks like that's on there good. So now hopefully I could pick this up, kind of slide that out of the way, and set this guy. Ooh, that's gonna be tricky. So I'm gonna have to flip it up a little bit so the box fits properly. Oop. Alright, so let's see here, where is my alright, so it's not good. Alright. So that's roughly in place. Oh crap. Oh, that moved. So I'm going to try to get some of these bolts in there. Looks like it's definitely cleared now. So there are 2 additional. So these are the front bolts that'll get mounted to the front side. These are the rear bolts. They're a little bit longer. So because the fair lead's there, there's basically additional space. This is tricky. Well, that was not. Alright, yeah, you got one in. So the tricky part is just lining up those washers. Alright, that one went in pretty good. Let's see if it catches. Let's check these front ones. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put the lock washers on on those back ones. So I'll just try to get this front one in and then go from there. wondering if these bolts might not be long enough. Now that I got those washers in there and the lock nut. So let's try taking this off. So it seems to have grabbed onto the nut in there. So it's definitely in there. It's not all the way through though. It would be nice to have a little more thread going through, so I don't know how much is actually going to go through, and it would be nice to have those lock washers on there. So we'll see if these rear bolts that are slightly longer is able to catch but also thread in. So the rear one barely catches. I wonder. How was that? Oh, that was the bolt pulling out. So I might be able to take out one washer, lower it just a little bit. So basically I just have the one washer in there, so I'll give that a try. So lift her up a little bit. Yep. So, looks like all I need is maybe just the one washer. So I'm going to try to get this one snugged back in and go from there. Alright. All right. So now I'm just gonna make sure everything's looking good, and then I can turn. Wow, that's close. All right. Where? Okie dokie. So it's going to be 14 millimeter. So I'm just going to snug these down and then make sure everything's in good position. Alright, so now it's pretty much in there. So I'm going to just run some of these wires, get these guys on there. F2. This is F1. So the box hopefully will mount right about here, and then hopefully at that point I could run everything back to back through the radiator area, or like the front grill, and then whatnot. So I'm gonna roll, I think, this guy over, tighten it up, and go from there. Alright, so I think I have everything installed. Got my cables on there. The ground cable runs under, through there, over that top area there. You can see that screw, so there's the bolt, and the nut comes pretty much all the way through. Here's another shot of one back here. So there's another nut. Again, that one. So what I basically have is like one little washer under each of those so that it raises it up just enough to clear that bolt there that I shaved down. You can kind of see it right in there too. There's another one on this side. So there's a shot of it. To the left there you can see the bolt that I shaved down, so now it clears. The washer is on there on the right on all four sides, so that is looking good. Hopefully this hopefully this doesn't protrude too far when I mount it, and hopefully it doesn't interfere with the crossbar there. So we'll see. The bracket that I have, I'll show you here. So this is the bracket that mounts on the back of the Winch, or this control box here. I think it needs bent right here. So, whoops. Oh, that's great. So I believe if I mounted it on there, basically like that, if I bend a 90 into there, then this piece can mount onto there, and hopefully it'll sit on there properly. So that's the thought. So I'll probably have to bend this up, potentially drill a hole, and mount it right there in that area. So do that tomorrow. Alright, so we have the winch finally mounted in there. I just wanted to kind of go over things, show you what's going on. So this is that opening that I was talking about, where the little piece here that I had to cut off because otherwise it would have hit and I couldn't turn it properly. The VR8000, see here, I mean, it just barely makes it so you can actually rotate this thing into free spool and back. It's a little tricky. Sometimes you gotta wiggle that there. There we go. So it helps if you have a pair of gloves on. I kind of tried to round that as much as I could so I didn't hurt my hand too much, but it's not too bad. Hopefully when I cut that off, it didn't heat that up and mess that piece up. Apparently there is a set screw right here that you can pull out and this whole piece comes off. So if anything, it might be the seal around, like the little O-ring around there, that might have melted a little bit, but hopefully that's not the case. Anyways, just wanted to kind of show you what's going on here. The 3 wires here are all wired up. The trick is the ground is right here, the ground strap that goes to the battery, but the bolt is on the back side. So it's a little tricky to get that ground on there. And there's also, if you look here, this little tiny wire. This little guy right here is a ground wire for your electrical box, I guess. And that kind of comes down. Let's see if I could show you here. You can kind of see it comes down and just kind of rides over the winch there. And the front goes around and goes to that same post. Wiring's pretty simple. This little guy here, I just got this bolted on, drilled 2 little holes in there, got an L bracket. This bracket here that bolts on there, that came with the winch and everything, but there was nothing really to bolt it to up top here. So I just got this little L bracket, Bolted that on. The bolts, I don't know if you can see these guys here. There we go. So the bolts just barely kind of come through. It shouldn't ever touch. I mean, you got a good inch or so. So it should be fine there unless it kind of binds up. So just got to keep an eye on that so that it doesn't spool up in this one little area here, and then rub against those little bolts. I guess I could cut them down if I wanted to, but for now, we'll leave that. It's not like every day I'm using my winch, so it's kind of just emergencies if I need to get out, if I get stuck, or assistance going up a hill or through something. So anyways, next steps are hopefully this isn't too difficult, but basically just to mount it up and kind of go from there. So I did end up getting some extended bolts. I'll show you here. So these here are the bolts that are provided. There's 4. Where'd the other one go? It's back here somewhere. Here we go. So there's 4 1.25 inch long, 3/8 16. So 3/8 16 1.25 inch is the specs on these bolts. These guys are 1.5 inch, and so they also provided these 2, and those are for I'll try to come around here and show you. So the longer bolts are supposed to go in here, and then the shorter bolt goes up here to mount the winch in, and then those go through and mount up to the feet, basically, because it's foot forward mounting on this. This is the hole that I had to drill out, and then I ground down that bolt on the back side there so that the winch could clear it, and then I shimmed it by adding a washer on the inside, so that it kind of gave me an extra little bit of clearance. So what I ended up doing is I ended up going and buying grade 8 1.25 inch for the top, and 1.5 inch for the top, 1.75 inch for the bottom, because I'm extending the distance, and I wanted to make sure there was enough thread that goes through the nut. Went with some beefier bolts. I believe the ones that they provide are grade 5, so I just went with grade 8. I have, you know, a washer here and a lock washer, same here, and that just helps so that when it's all mounted in there, there's no so when it's all mounted in there, the threads, you know, clear the backside of the bolts. There's no issues where the bolt is going through and actually dragging or rubbing against the spool there. So those are the top ones, with those 1.5 inch bolts, with, obviously you can see there's a washer there, the nut and the bolt. So there's a washer on the inside of that to just give it a little extra clearance. And on the bottom ones there, you can see those, you know, the thread goes through the nut a little bit further, but it doesn't touch the spool or anything, and it doesn't, they snug down tight, and they should be good to go. So next steps are mounting it up and running some wires, and cross your fingers, test it out. Hopefully everything's good to go. All right. So she is all now installed. So I just want to go over a few things, just kind of show you. It was kind of a pain in the butt, but it did come together really well. So grab my flashlight here. Of course, you can see there's that little ground cable, which is clear of the wires. Here's the wires, which tuck neatly under there, go through the grill on the inside here. So yeah, they're there and there. They come up here. I just kind of use those little fasteners. I'm running a dual battery setup. I've got my right there, that's the Piranha off-road smart solenoid, I guess. Basically, there's a little LED. It'll make sure your main's charged first, and then once your main is charged, it'll start charging your auxiliary. It automatically shuts off once it reaches its voltage, so it kind of regulates everything. It has a back feed eliminator, so nothing eliminates or nothing feeds back through. Really simple setup. Obviously, I got to fix that crazy spider web of stuff. That's next once I work on the carburetor and whatnot. So, anyways, overall, it turned out really nice. I love the way it looks and the way it's all set up. I'm excited to get some little lights for the grill there. Underneath, I just want to kind of show you some things. Actually, let's go on the side here first. So, you're supposed to drill out this here and put a bolt in there. I haven't done that yet. This guy here really didn't quite line up. That was originally, it was kind of bent a little bit, but also the rails, that bar that's in there was bent, and I could beat on it and try to bend it back, or just leave those bottom bolts out. Underneath here, just want to kind of show you what's going on. So there's the bolts through the frame rails. I used a lock washer, and that is also a locking nut, or it's got the teeth on the back of the nut there. So basically, this gives me enough distance because there was a little bit of the shaft coming through. You'll notice too that these guys are loose. They're not, so there will be a little bit of rattling probably. I guess it could be shimmed, or I could have put a washer on the inside, but it's kind of a pain in the butt. Those bolts are tightened up pretty much as tight as they're gonna get. I don't want to strip them or anything, so I'm just gonna leave them where they're at and deal with the rattling. So this guy here, I gotta tighten that guy up a little bit more. So I'm gonna go through and just double check everything, make sure everything's nice and tight and snug. You can see there's a little bit of that one's a little bit loose there. So that's what it looks like underneath. The front here, you can see there's those the longer bolts that I used here in the bottom. That's the nut, because I had to run it through the backside. I did not mount the license plate holder. Here in Michigan, we don't need to put a license plate on the front, or at least we're not required by law to do so. Yeah, so overall, that is that. I am very satisfied with the ARB bumper and the Warren winch. And just to kind of show you here, set this guy up. There's that. So it's tight right there. Winching in. So everything's working quite nice. Yeah. I know in the instructions, they do tell you to basically mount this box up inside of there or wherever you can. I guess there would be room here. But then you gotta run a bunch of cables down there. I don't know, I've seen a ton of videos and a ton of people running their boxes right there in the front. I mean, other than it looking cool, it's nice and convenient. I don't have to pop the hood in order to get to my winch line or anything like that. I did see some people running some wireless connectors on there, so they got the little wireless winch operator control arm. And then you can put it under the bonnet or the hood and not have to worry about it. But I've seen people go through, you know, tons of water and mud and whatnot with them sitting right there. So I guess I could, and I don't know if they do. I guess I have to ask around some guys or whatever. But I mean, I could run some sort of switch to, you know, inside my in the cab area so that I could kind of shut that off and basically, you know, kill power to the winch once while I'm driving or crossing water or mud or whatever, and then turn it on when I need it. I've seen some stuff like that, I guess, but again, how to go about it, I'm not entirely certain, because of course this is some really big wire, and I don't want to run that wire back into or through my firewall and back into the cab area. So yeah, this here's the overall. I'm very pleased with both products, and Low Range Off-Road's customer service and support. Even Warren, I've called them because I had some questions about the bolts when I ended up getting these grade 8 bolts. I didn't have these ones with me when I was at the store, and I couldn't remember the thread pitch and the size and whatnot. I knew I needed to get a little bit longer, but I was kind of shooting in the dark, so I called them, and they kind of looked it up on their computer and told me what they had, and I was able to get the ones I wanted. They recommended doing the grade 8s because there's a little bit more space as the winch feet are being now moved away from the surface of the bumper slightly. So I went with the stronger bolts. There's extra hardware. I mean, technically these are the bolts that are supposed to go in those outside frame rails, right down in there, if I drill those guys out. But yeah, that's basically the whole thing there. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and hopefully this helps somebody else. Put an ARB bumper on their Suzuki Samurai.